Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the channel. I recently unboxed this flat lap from Wollemi Opals or Wollemi Machines. It's a 3D printed flat lap, a very beginner model, a very low budget option compared to a lot of others out there. And because of that, I thought this is the perfect machine for beginners. And so I'll go through some absolute beginner tips when it comes to flat laps, things that you don't want to get tripped up on if you're just getting into it, because it is quite different to carving and quite different to using a cabbing wheel. So I'll just go through the 5 biggest things to keep an eye on and try to get a handle of really quickly, or you're going to have a really bad time. So number 1 is a little bit nerdy. You can see here, I've got a table and some plots here, some linear lines. Pretty boring. I'll pop it up on screen so you can see it a little bit better. Now what this is talking about is from the center of your flat lap, we're using a rotation that's going like this. Now in a cabbing wheel or on a rotary tool, from the spinning axis, you're always going to be this kind of set distance away, and this is your abrasive surface. When it comes to flat laps, we're not doing that. We're working on a completely different plane. So we're working, and this is rotating around and around and around, and we're grinding here. But we could also be grinding here, or we could be grinding way out here. This is a 6-inch model. You can definitely get them bigger, not in the 3D printed version, but they do have companies out there producing larger flat laps. And what you need to be careful of is that the speed of this abrasive surface, the linear velocity where you're making contact with your stone, like if I grab this on right here on a dop stick, where you're making contact in comparison to the center is going to change how fast you're grinding. So the plots and everything that I've got made up just describe how different the velocity is of the surface that you're in contact with from the center all the way out towards the edge of your pad, because this motor is always spinning at a set RPM. So at any moment in time when you're grinding and this thing is spinning at a set RPM, the speed of the surface towards the center is actually going much slower than the speed out here, because while this one travels a full distance around the circle, you can see my other hand is flying way quicker. But these are locked in place. So really need to get a grip on where you're comfortable in grinding, but you also don't want to grind in one set spot. So it's great when you've got a machine like this where you can vary the speed. It means you can make the speed of the surface here and here the same just by turning up and down the potentiometer. And then you might carve a stone in here, the next one you might do over here, the next one you might go further out over here, if you can eyeball the speeds pretty well. But that trips up a lot of people, so be careful with that. It's the one key difference with flat laps compared to the cabbing wheels and even the burrs. The burrs are quite set in terms of their surface velocity when it's in contact with your stone. And now I'm also saying speed and velocity, but this is velocity dependent. On this side you can see the surface is going in that downwards direction, but at the same time it's going in the upwards direction here. Now this is important. You don't want the stone on your dop stick to get a lot of friction trying to pull the stone off in that upwards direction. So if we're rotating this way, this is the side you want to be working, and you want to be rotating the stone over here. You don't want to be working on the other side where you're starting to really try to tug this stone up and off the dop stick. You will end up having them shooting off and you'll be hunting for them forever. I have accidentally slipped a couple times and moved across to the other side and had the thing come out. One, because you're holding it in such a way that you're only expecting the force to be coming downwards, and when it goes in the opposite direction, I've actually had a stick just get pulled out of my hand. But also you're much more often gonna debond the stone off your dop stick if you end up going in the wrong direction. So try to keep on the side that's going down. It's also the reason why a lot of cabbing machines, the surface of the wheels will be coming down and brushing up against your stone in the downwards direction, not the upwards direction. Upwards direction would be super weird because you will end up getting stones just pinging off. I mean, with the 5-minute epoxy, it's very hard to get it to fly off. But if you're using dop wax or super glue or something, there's a huge chance you're going to end up getting it just pulled off. It's just too much friction in the wrong direction. So that's point number 2. Number 3 comes down to how you get water to your stone. Now with carving, a lot of the time I dunk, but I do have a little drip feed as well that I can do. And there I'm just dripping it straight onto the burr. With the cabbing wheels, you're normally spraying the water from the top, or some machines actually spray it in from the bottom, but I prefer it when it comes in from the top. When it comes to a flat lap, just aim for your water to drop towards the center, because the other thing with a rotating disc like this, if something's sitting in the center of it, like a puddle of water, it's going to want to go outwards. If you've ever been on one of those kids' toys at a park, where you spin it too fast and people end up flying off the sides. That's what this is like. You're going to get a force that's going to drag the water out naturally. In the flat position, it's really easier to judge. Once you start getting into an angled position, it does become a bit harder, but don't aim your water at the top thinking that gravity is going to bleed it down. The spinning of this is too fast to let gravity just work its way down. You'll end up hitting here and you'll still get the water going off. Now, if you're going like full vertical, you're going to have a much harder time. In that case, I wouldn't advise using something like this kind of dripper. You want something that's going to spray the surface a little bit more. You can also just have the tap really close to the surface. That's what I do with my current little vertical flat lap. So number 3, aim the water towards the middle, it'll work its way outwards. Number 4 is a bit of a feeling. When you're working with a flat lap, the whole surface is essentially flat, as the name would suggest. Super surprising, very flat. When you've got things like burrs and wheels, you've got this curvature to them. If you look at it like this, your contact is actually up against a curved surface. Same with the wheels, except the curved surface is got a much larger radius. And because of that, you're actually contacting your stone on just a small part of the surface. Whereas on the flat lap, you have to be very careful not to put really huge flat spots on your stone, which when you're cabbing is no good. When you're carving, it's no good. You don't want flat spots. That way, when you get the light and you try to roll it over the surface, you're not going to get that nice, glossy, rounded surface. What you're going to see is just segments, just facets. You're going to get a little flat spot here, flat spot here, flat spot here, flat spot there. Heaps of little flat spots. Now, it doesn't necessarily have to happen with a flat lap. If you're using electroplated plates, it's much more likely. But if you've got something like this spongy, soft sandpaper backed with foam, here you can actually avoid it quite well. So you don't have to get a lot of those flat spots because it's much more forgiving. But otherwise you have to be really careful of those flat spots. You can make a full contact with this entire surface all at once if you've got a big enough stone. It does make polishing flat surfaces much easier though. So that contact is point number 4. And then the final point is the grinding speed. The abrasive effect of all of these tools is very different. If you're used to carving, you might get a stone done in, say, an hour, maybe a bit longer. Definitely longer if it's a complex carving. With a flat lap, you can get a quick little cab done in just a matter of minutes. Same as a cabbing wheel. So you have to be a little bit careful when you're just starting out, not to just make your stone disappear. It is going to go so much faster. What takes hours with a carving set will only take you minutes on the flat lap. So you just want to take it really easy. Just get used to it. Just potch, like always, whenever you're unsure about what you're doing, grab a chunk of potch and just feel how quickly it disappears. If you're working Mintaby potch. If you're working Kubapiti potch. You want to kind of match that matrix with what the precious gemstone you want to work with is. Otherwise you will get really sad when you lose. Even just a carat is nightmarish on a good stone. So be very careful of that. On the same note, I find that flat laps are very easy to contaminate. Try your hardest to store them separately in their own little Ziploc bags when you're finished after you dry them. Try not to have, say, this one sitting here and then having your felt disc over here or your lower grit over here or your higher grit over here. There's too much chance on a surface to be able to get something to flick off and deposit on the other thing. As soon as you get contamination, they do become pretty hard to clean. You can use a wire brush and stuff, but you are going to end up deteriorating each of those discs. So you really need to keep on top of keeping things separate, keeping things clean, cleaning in between stages, all of that. Don't recycle your water and just put it in some kind of aquarium pump loop. You really want to separate your wastewater from your clean water, and you want to separate every single one of these pads. I can't stress that enough because it is super important. It's the same with your polishing powders, your cerium oxide versus aluminium oxide. I use both. I keep them completely separate. When I'm packaging them for sales, I do them on completely different days. I do full cleanings in between. I've got gloves on, everything. I try to keep all of that stuff as separate as possible because once you get a contamination, it might take you ages to find it, and by then you might have wasted hours. So the best thing to do is to just avoid it completely. And really that's it. If you're just picking one of these up to just try your hand at flat lapping for the first time ever, as this machine is kind of designed for, the pure beginners, you might have done a little bit of carving beforehand, you might have done some cabbing beforehand. You might not have your own machines, it might just be at the gem club, but once you do get something like this, just take it easy, make those slow adjustments, keep these 5 factors in mind because they are super important. I remember at least 3 of them tripping me up pretty badly when I first got my hands on one. So hopefully that helps. I am now going to power this one up and we're going to do a couple stones with it. I want to try to pump out as many hours on this as possible before the restock happens. Old Wallamy has got the printers going 24/7, so I'm sure he's going to catch up to his back orders and everything, and then the website will have options to purchase. And before then I want to have pretty much run this machine into the ground. If I can break it, I'll break it, but I definitely need to see how good it is. Can't go recommending something too strongly if it's no good, though I highly doubt it from the tinkering I've already done. So let me put it through hell and I'll let you know how I go. Stay tuned and I'll see you in the next one.